Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Taya and this is Okanda, my Canada Core island. As you can see, we're standing in the midst of a bunch of random things, and this is inspired by Console Kato's recent video explaining mood boards, and you know how I feel about mood boards. I really enjoyed creating this mood board with a bunch of random things that I was able to come across. Of course, this is much more cluttered than it will be, and I'm gonna have areas that are more city-like and areas that are more natural feeling. I want to have a whole lake area as well as a snowy Rocky Mountain area as well. So today I would like to work on the entrance of my island, and that's going to be the area between here and resident services. Not completely, because my resident services is a decent chunk away from my airport. It's not too far, to be honest. It's pretty close. Here's the plan. First, I'm going to take all of this down, of course, and then I'm going to mark out where I want my exact entrance to be and the road. So I want a road to come along here and then go up and end off beside resident services over here. So it will be quite a long road, and we'll have to take out quite a few trees to get there. In this area between resident services and where the road will come, I want to have a massive Tim Hortons, and that is going to be fantastic to have it right here. And then behind where the entrance is, I'm going to have a lookout point that has a viewpoint. Hopefully I can pull this off. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to clean this whole area up, and then we can get started on some of the builds, and VoiceOver Taya will walk you through that. Thanks everyone, enjoy! Hello everyone, it has been a while since VoiceOver Taya was here with you. On Glenny, the final builds that I did there were in more of a tutorial style, so I was actually walking you through exactly what I was doing at every moment. And I honestly do prefer those kind of builds because you learn more about the process that goes into the actual building of the environment. However, this build took a really long time for me to create in real time. It was about 3 days. So for the sake of making a video that wasn't like 4 hours long, I wanted to do it as a speed build and just do a voiceover. So you saw that I cleared away everything that I had at my entrance and I wiped out some trees. And here I am just doing a small test of the road pattern that I've laid out. So the main road pattern is transparent, so whatever in-game path you lay it over affects the look of the pathing. So I'm just doing a little test to see whether I like it on the arched stone pathway or the stone pathway, and I decided to go with the arched pathway because it does add an interesting texture. Also, the road is a little bit darker. Now, looking at the footage back, I am a little bit unsure as to whether I should have gone with the regular stone path, because the road pattern, as you'll see, goes slightly darker than the curbs. So that's a bit, it throws it off just a touch. However, once you put objects and items over top of it everywhere, it's not as noticeable, that slight color difference. So I decided I'm not going to worry about it. It's totally fine. And here is my mega amount of pathway that I had to do. It extends so far out to the right, and I really did think that Claude's house was out of the way, but it turns out that it was smack dab in where I wanted to put the pathing, but that's totally fine. I did end up moving it when I go to build an incline a little bit later on. So I'm just marking it out, and I was shocked at how wide I needed to make this road, but it's all good. I mean, we're starting with a blank canvas, and this is the first build, and I think that's a little bit of why it took me longer to complete this build, was because it is the first build, and I have heard that from other people that the entrance area is the hardest. I think I'm only noticing that on Okanda because on Glenny it was much more of a off camera. I was just doing it on my own. I wasn't recording at the time when I was making the Glenny entrance, and I had a very distinctive idea of what I wanted for the Glenny entrance as well, whereas on Okanda, I didn't quite know exactly how it would work out. I didn't really have a vision in my mind of how I wanted it to look, besides the fact that I wanted there to be a little bit of a welcome area and then a crosswalk up to an incline. Because up on the incline above, I would like to have a lookout point that I've talked about before. And I have started working on some custom codes that look like the CN Tower, and I'm really hoping that I can pull that off eventually. But that will probably be the next build, because I need to get this whole area kind of sorted out before I can move on to the other areas. It dictates a lot of the spacing that I'll have going forward. So the roads are in now, and I'm just going through and adding sidewalks. I did mismatch this a little bit. Again, all the custom codes will be in the description as always, whatever ones you want to find. I did a lot of experimentation on the exact kind of roads that I wanted that would still have that Canada aesthetic. In Canada, our roads typically are like darker color than the sidewalks, and I don't know why that detail was such a point of contention for me when I was looking for custom designs to use on my road, but it was really difficult to find a sidewalk pattern that was exactly what I wanted. And even still, this one is not exactly perfect. I feel like the curbs feel very like Asian or like Japanese inspired more, like those grates. We don't really have grates like that in Canada, but the colors were close enough, and I liked the texture, and I loved how rounded and kind of like chibi they feel. So that's why I decided to go for the combination that I did, and I really do like the sidewalk pattern that I chose. It's very simple, but matches the colors of sidewalks in Canada pretty accurately. So now I've just created this big block of terraforming, and I'm just going to fill it in. I just made the outline of it, and this is the outline of the lookout area that is going to look out. Oh my gosh, look at Ozzy and Claude. They were back there just chilling. Finishing it off, just completing the last little bit of terraforming back here. I also end up extending it a little bit to the right because I'm noticing that from the entrance you can still see where the cliffs cut off, and I end up eventually extending it out one more block as well, just to accommodate for some of the fake buildings that I put into this build. That's right, there are so many simple panels in this build. I did not know going into it that it would be a simple panel bonanza, but it ended up being that way just because the rock cliff edge took away from the city feeling. A red steel staircase. It looks so good in the final build. I love it so much. I always wanted to use the steel staircases, but I never had a place on Glenny where it looked appropriate. And now I'm laying out the flooring for the Tim Hortons. At this point in the build, I was not sure whether or not I wanted to have an indoor space for the Tim Hortons, so that's why I floor the whole thing entirely. But I end up making it a false building in the end. And I do talk about that a little bit more because just coming up here in a second, I actually came on camera the next day to talk about my process and how far along I had gotten. This is a multi-day build, so in the end I'm super happy with how it turned out, but it did take a little bit of doing to get there for sure. So I'm just putting down some trees and moving stuff around a little bit, and then I will talk to you about some of my plans for the Tim Hortons and the realization that I'm gonna have to buy like a bunch of simple panels or go to Treasure Islands. If you haven't seen my video about Treasure Islands that I posted a couple days back, please go and check it out. I think it's really helpful and informative, and I just want to be transparent with you guys that I do use Treasure Islands because designing is my favorite part of this game. Alright, so I've done quite a lot of pathing and terraforming here. I did add some street lamps and just some garbage cans over here. I think I need to put simple panels all along the back wall here to block the raw cliff edge. Now, that's a lot of simple panels. So we're gonna leave this for a second, and I'm going to time travel forward one day, but I wanted to show you some development that I did make with the Tim Hortons area. So first thing is first, I designed a awning, and this is from a photo that I found of Tim Hortons, and this is very similar to the kind of awning that they have outside of their stores. Some of the stores, the newer ones, have this black and red awning. So I'm going to do another fireplace here, facing the wrong way. So behind the fireplaces, we're gonna place these. So look at how good that looks. So I do have another stall here. Let me just see. This is all simple panels. So I think we're at a bit of an impasse until I can go and collect some more. I might have to go and do that off camera and then come back to you because I think I want to put simple panels all along the back wall here. I'll have to count out how many that is, and all along the back wall, I don't know. Okay, clearly I don't have this all figured out yet.
The next day.
So here we are in the next day, and I've made the decision that this is going to be a false building. I've collected some of the materials that I needed from what I had in my storage, and I actually ended up sending some things over from my other island, Glenny. And even still, that was definitely not going to be enough. I spent about 2 hours just going back and forth from Glenny and ordering things and sending myself things and ordering on Okanda and time traveling, and just was still nowhere close to the amount of simple panels that I would need. So I ended up going to a couple of treasure islands, which was super helpful. And you can see my stash, my hoard of simple panels down on the ground there to the right of me. I ended up also doing some code shopping, which I didn't include in this video or else it would have been crazy long, but I found this apartment, and I also was going to use these diagonal bricks, but I found this more simple brick pattern, and I also found that like cinder block pattern, which I thought was super nice. It just felt like really city-like and a little bit grungy, but not too much. There is a lot of cement used in buildings in Canada and like lighter colored stone, but I wanted to have more brick colors just because it's warm, and my dream address for the end of Okanda, I'm thinking, will be set in fall. So the fall tones are really what I wanted to accentuate here. And I love this brick on this simple panel, so I ended up copying over the simple panel design that I had before, that diagonal brick, and just going all in for this regular brick. And then I'm creating this combo here where the apartment buildings have the cinder block on the bottom, and the more house looking buildings like this, the more modern looking ones, have brick on the bottom. And I think it is a nice contrast. I also have 2 different kinds of brick windows that I think are appropriate, and I'm loving how this is turning out already. As you can see, my Tim Hortons is coming along nice. I've got the doors in there. I'm spinning around in joy. I can't believe it that it's actually coming together. And I put that door down on the lower level to indicate it's like an apartment entryway. And this is one of my favorite things too. I push back the cliff in one area so I can put a stall inside of this little nook, and it looks kind of like a storefront. And I end up actually customizing that to a darker brown so that it looks more appropriate. There we are. And it's like a little tourist booth. So I end up putting some document stacks and a little pile of magazines, stack of magazines there as well. And I'm finally doing something with loft beds. I have never created like a false building. I tried to create a false building on Glenny very early on, and I got so frustrated with it that I ended up bailing. But this time I had seen a lot of other people doing fake buildings, lots of simple panel use, and I just felt inspired to do it, especially this picture of a surf shop. I know it has nothing to do with the look of what I'm going for on Okanda. However, just seeing the way that they structured their building and the simplicity of it, I had never seen a fake building in Animal Crossing that I thought was truly realistic until I had seen that one, and I was blown away by it. So I just felt really inspired to do that. I end up putting a door there as well, but it does leave in the final build, and I don't know if I actually show me taking it away because I do some of this build process off camera as well, just because it was a lot of planning and thinking about exactly the positioning of the items. This is one of my favorite parts of the entire build, this little apartment entrance that I made. I just clipped back, of course, the, did I put pathing in there? I forgot. I do end up fixing that eventually. I put pathing down underneath those simple panels below, but that is my little entranceway for the apartment building, and I just like how it's tucked back slightly. I also did the same thing with the Tim Hortons. The door is slightly tucked back, and it gives that like entranceway kind of feel for the building. And I like to do a combination of different tops to the buildings. So in some cases I'm using simple panels, and in all the cases I'm using simple panels, but in some cases I'm using the bookcases, and some I'm using the loft bed with a desk. I really like the loft bed because you can customize the top of it to make it look like it's a roof. And this is another part that I really love, are these clotheslines, because that's adding such a realistic touch. Also, the apartment building simple panels are a little bit repetitive because they do end up repeating the exact same pattern of little flowers in the bottom right corner. So adding the clotheslines in front of those panels was a really big brain moment for me. And I know this is not a new thing to add the clotheslines in a building build like this, but I was so happy with how that turned out. And I'm just customizing these loft beds. The loft beds were another item that I thought I had more of, and then I ended up having to order a lot of and actually go to Treasure Island because I did not have the correct colorways available to me. So even on Glenny, I thought that I had the correct colorways for the loft beds, the darker ones, but I did not. So I went and I got some loft beds, and I was able to complete the build a little bit later. I think it was actually the next day. So it's really crazy how long this did take me, but it's because of the amount of materials that were needed. And another thing that I have seen, and I can't remember where I saw it first, but is using these iron garden benches as a balcony railing. And from below, they look very much like a balcony railing, so you can kind of see that it just adds a little bit of decoration. You can't really see it too much, but I like the little detail that it adds. And I did not have hedges available to me on Okanda, so I tried to use the shrubs. But as you can see from below, you can barely tell that there's anything there. So I did get Glenny Taya to send me over some hedges so that I could complete this area, because the hedges do stand quite a bit taller. I also like that the hedges will match, and they won't flower, but they will match the seasonal changes. So I really like that about hedges, and they're one of my favorite types of fencing. I really need leaf to like show up on Okanda again so that I can craft my own hedges instead of having to rely on other people to send me hedges. And I'm just shrubbing it up down below here. It's starting to take shape more now. It's starting to feel more like a little cozy city. I kind of think of this as being like the most picturesque place in Canada that you've ever seen, because Canada really doesn't quite look like this, but it's a rough interpretation. It's like the best of the best, what it could be like, kind of an amalgamation, but it does feel very cozy to me, even though it has like a city feeling. And I think that's what kind of turned me off from doing city builds in the past, was that they were all very cold feeling. So having a city that has a little bit more of that warmth behind it really suits my taste a lot better, and it gives me that you know, that outlet of doing a city build because they look so cool every time that I see them. So I'm starting work above the Tim Hortons, trying to see what I can do, but then I backtrack again to this area and I put in some garden benches, which I feel it just frames the area a lot to have something going on in the foreground with benches. And once I add the final details in, I'm so happy with how this foreground area turned out. Now for the actual entrance, I went back and forth a lot of times on the exact orientation of these items, but I left big gaps in between. So my first stage was putting down these floor lights, and I thought that that was pretty cute, but I end up removing them and making it a little bit more warm. The bikes, I absolutely love the position of this bike specifically because it looks like in the end that it's like chained up to the lamppost, but it's like somebody's just come home to the apartment, or maybe they're running in quickly and they just chained their bike up and ran inside. It makes me so happy. And I do put a garbage bin over there, but I end up changing that area to put a cedar in front and removing that door because it's a little bit repetitive from side to side to have two doors there. And street lights galore. I thought I had a street light in my pocket, but I did not. I do find one eventually, but just putting in some trees, putting in some shrubs, and adding a couple more bushes on this left-hand side in front of the Tim Hortons. It feels so cozy. While I was filming this video, 2 villagers gave me reactions. So I got the shocked reaction from Teddy, and I got the sleepy reaction from Puddles. So that was super fun. I love getting the new reactions. That's the only part about starting from scratch that is a little bit frustrating, is you don't have the reactions that you had before. But it's not that big of a deal, and I do play just about every day on this island, so I'm getting them pretty quickly. So just like I had on Glenny, I put a warp pipe at the front. I really enjoy having the warp pipe right at the front of my island. It makes it super easy to get back to my house and back to the airport if I'm doing trades, or if I'm going back and forth to islands, then having that warp pipe at the front is super critical. Also, when I do end up setting up a yard sale area on Okanda or a Nokazon trading area on Okanda, then having a warp pipe at the front just makes it easier to get that set up without having to move a whole lot of stuff around or go back to your inventory to grab your pipe or anything like that. So I enjoy having it close. However, I think the shops will be a little bit farther away from my entrance than they were on Glenny. So I might need to add a third pipe and just add some chaos into my life trying to jump in to get to the right place. We will see. And because I had the hedges available to me, I do frame off the bottom edge of this build with the hedges, and I think that really looks nice. And I left a small walkway for myself so that I can get down to the beach if needed from this side, and it turned out super cute. I don't know what's going to be on the beaches quite yet, but they might be a little bit simpler here because in Canada our beaches are mostly on lakes, and so of course we don't have palm trees and that kind of thing. It's a bit of a colder climate here. I say colder, but it gets hot in the summer. It just gets really cold in the winter too, so it goes both ways. I'm adding in some butterfly models. I think they looked super cute there. And of course we have to have Canada flags galore at the front here. So I'm just building out my little welcome area with a apple box as well. And I do end up putting some carnations on there in the end, and it looks super sweet. Leaf piles, of course, we gotta have all the different colors of leaf piles because we sort our leaves by color here in Canada. Just kidding. It's pretty funny how they're just like all distinctive colors, but I think it works. I think they're just little pops of color throughout. And the manhole covers, which I think looks super adorable, and also the what's it called? Floor sign. Yes. because it's always under construction in Canada in the summer or even up to the fall. We just have winter and then we have construction in Canada. Those are our seasons. So we'll probably had like an actual construction area around somewhere. I think the road portion that's going off more to my prairie area that I have planned is going to have a little bit of a construction spot in honor. And again, the butterfly models, they're just so cute, and they actually look really good on the sidewalk because they're almost the same color as the sidewalk. They're little silver stands, so they look very natural. I put in the televisions into the windows for the Tim Hortons because it just adds that little bit of extra depth. I mean, they do look like televisions, but I feel like they're windows in my imagination, so use your imagination with me and it will all look perfect. And the bikes, I love the bikes everywhere here. I did try to add the electric kick scooters for some variation, but it just looked a little bit too much. And more manhole covers, because you gotta have manhole covers in a city. It kind of breaks up the patterning of the road too, which gives a nice feel. This is such a new thing for me because I never used to just drop random little items around because I was always really sensitive to what Isabel would rank my island. I really wanted that 5-star rating. However, I really like the level of detail that dropped items give, and it's not really that important to me anymore exactly if my island is 5-star. It's 5 stars in my heart, and that's all that matters. I also really enjoy the look of these pine cones. I think they're my favorite dropped item. They're just so detailed and cute. And all the little leaves. I end up cleaning it up a little bit because it's a little busy on the sidewalk, but let's skip forward one more day to get the finishing details in place.
The next day.
All right, the next day is here. It's different lighting. It's kind of that golden hour time, and we're gonna add in some dogs. You can also see that I did change my entrance a little bit off camera, and I added a little sitting area right beside the Tim Hortons to the left of it off camera as well. This build video is getting long and I just wanted to do some finishing touches around. So the balloons are some of my favorite items that I added, and I actually thought that I was recording for some of it, but I was not. So that's what it is. This video is already long, so we're just gonna roll with it. And we're just finishing off. I got a lot of loft beds and I customized them all with like an asphalt or a kind of sidewalk pattern that I found. So again, all the patterns will be down below. If you do find any that are not listed below, please let me know and I will put them in. That's no problem at all. I do run down to check a lot in this build, and I'm sorry it looks a little bit chaotic, but I'm constantly running back down to the entry to see how it looks with the loft beds in place, with the bookcases in place, and I'm just loving doing this build the whole time. I will say that making a city skyline residential kind of area like this with fake buildings is really satisfying to see come together. Every time that I went down to like check what it was looking like, I was just blown away and really happy with how it was turning out. I would highly recommend anybody to make a fake building on their island because it's so much fun. It's honestly a lot easier than I thought it would be. Once I got the designs that I wanted, and once I got enough bookcases and enough loft beds and enough simple panels, it actually came together pretty decently. I think the only piece of advice that I could give is just really do some research on exactly the kind of style that you want for your buildings. I had to do quite a lot of searching around for the different window patterns that I ended up finding, and a lot of it was kind of by chance because I was just scrolling through Pinterest and I would see something that I liked and I liked it better than what I had found before. So a lot of it was trial and error. And I would say even especially for the road pattern, I went through a lot of trial and error. So if you go over to my Pinterest board, because I have the Pinterest for O Canada just available for you to look at, if you'd like to see some of my inspiration, and some of my process is a little bit more revealed there too, because you can see the kind of things that I'm pinning and what I end up landing on in the end. I will say it's a little bit harder to find custom designs that you want by searching in the custom design portal, just because you're limited to the languages that you know and the keyboards that you have available on your Switch. So for example, there are a lot of awesome Japanese design creators out there. The only way to find them is really on Twitter or Instagram or anything like that to actually find the creators of these codes. So we are almost there. We're just doing the final edits to the front area, and I switch around the balloon and the hedge standee and the monarch butterfly so that the monarch and the hedge standee are on the left hand side, and this final touch just brings it all together for me. Sometimes it's just a slightly off positioning and the items are all totally fine. So here we have it, the final reveal. Hello everybody. That was a bit of a marathon, but we finally have our finished entrance to O Canada. So you come off the airport and you have a little bit of an entryway. I love this monarch butterfly. This is a butterfly that we have in Canada, so I thought it was cute to include that. And I'm really happy with how this little stand area came out. It's more of like a welcome desk, like an information desk, maybe souvenirs, a little bit, pamphlets for the island. We got our native fruit apples here. We got our little welcome puppy. And we just have this road that comes along down this way. We got a nice bench to sit on here, and we've got some apartments up above. It has a city vibe, but in a Canada way, if that makes sense. If you've been to Canada before, I'd love to know your thoughts to see if you think this feels realistic to what Canada feels like. I love this red steel staircase. It's just so fitting. I am obsessed with it. So if you come over to the left here, we have our Tim Hortons, the first of many on my island. I am so happy with this view. It just makes me feel so good. I like how there's two different Tim Hortons signs, one that's a little farther back and then one that's more forward. I love the bike in front. I love all of the dogs. We're definitely going to keep that theme going. Also, we do have more butterfly models around because these are butterflies that you see in Canada, and I'm so excited. So coming over here, we do have the road that extends because I was just trying to plan it out. And this was an area that I made outside the speed build, and I did customize this little mug to be a Tim Hortons mug, which I think is so adorable. I put some scattered papers down here to maybe show that you have your Tim Hortons that you've littered. Don't litter. And then we just have some Berliners because of course you're going to Tim Hortons to get some donuts. Yes. So that is our completed entrance. I'm so happy that this is established on my island now. I feel like it's an awesome representation of what this island is going to be in the future. Let me know your thoughts below. Thank you so much everybody for watching. If you're not already, please subscribe down below. Leave me a like. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everybody. I'm not even facing the camera. Bye everybody.